Hello everyone, and welcome back to our bizarre and unusual world. It has been a hot minute since I posted a new episode, but considering spooky season is upon us, I thought I would jump back into this series. So welcome back. Today I'm going to be covering two cases that are quite similar, and that is the murders of Mary Ashford and Barbara Forrest. So as usual for this series, I'm going to be covering the who, what, when, where, why, and how of this particular unsolved case. Let's start off with the what. What makes these cases so bizarre or unusual? Well, these cases are very similar, and the links between them are very mysterious and still unsolved to this day. As Mary and Barbara were both killed on the same day, 157 years apart, near the same park location. Their bodies were found within 300 yards of each other. They were the same age, at 20 years old. They even had the same birthday. Both women were born on December 31st. And for both cases, the prime suspect would have the same name. So where does this case take place? These two cases take place in a suburb of Birmingham, England, in an area called Erdington, in what is known as Pipe Hayes Park. As for the when, you have 1817 for Mary's death and 1974 for Barbara's death. And of course, who were these victims and what exactly happened to them? We will start with Mary. Mary was a 20-year-old woman that was quite popular in her town. She seemed to be pretty normal. On May 26, 1817, Mary walked from her home towards work where she sold dairy products at the market. Before work though, she wanted to stop off at her friend Hannah Cox's house where she was going to leave some more party-appropriate clothing for later that evening. They had plans to go out together and Mary did not want to wear her work clothes out, so she was leaving the fancy clothes at her friend Hannah's house. At about 6 p.m. that night, Mary and Hannah got ready for the party and headed out to a gathering at Tyburn House. It is noted that both girls seemed to have a great time of dancing and socializing with two particular men there. One was Benjamin Carter and the other one was Abraham Thornton. While the four did leave the party together, Hannah ended up going off on her own, going back home by herself. Benjamin went back to the party and Mary and Abraham walked together towards Mary's grandfather's house. At around 4 a.m., Mary returned to Hannah's house to change back into her other clothes, pick up everything. She seemed to be in good spirits and told her friend that she had had a nice night with Abraham Thornton. Nothing seemed to be wrong, and so Mary headed home on her own, and there was multiple witnesses that placed her walking home on the road that night by herself. So from those witnesses, a little after 4 a.m., that would be the last time that Mary was seen alive, because unfortunately a few hours later, her body would be found. On what is known as Whit Monday, May 27th, 1817, at around 6:30 a.m., a laborer would discover Mary's body. At first, the man named George Jackson came across a bundle of clothes near what looked to be a water-filled pit. After authorities searched the water, they discovered Mary's body. She had bruises on her arms. There was an assumed sexual assault, attack, and drowning. Nearby this water pit, there were two sets of footprints found, one from a man's shoe and one from a woman's shoe. By 8 a.m., it is pretty much spread throughout the town that Mary had spent the evening with Abraham Thornton, and so in turn, he was arrested for her murder. Now, Thornton seemed very confused by this. He admitted to spending the night with her, he even admitted to having sex with her, but according to him, they had a great time that night. He walked her back to her friend Hannah's house, and the last time he saw her, she was alive. The suspect was quoted as saying, "I cannot believe she is murdered. Why? I was with her until 4 o'clock this morning." Now we move 157 years into the future. On May 27, 1974, another murder would take place in the same location and would hold on to some very similar details. Moving on to our second victim, that is Barbara Forrest. Barbara worked as a nurse at the local children's home, and she would go missing May 27th, also Whit Monday that year. Now, reports would say that Barbara went out dancing with her boyfriend that night, very similar to Mary's night, and again, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. After their night of dancing was done, her boyfriend Simon walked her to the bus stop, and that was the last time he saw her alive. Now, it did take authorities a few days to locate Barbara's body, but when they did, she was found in a ditch on Chester Road. There were marks on her body, of course, signs of sexual assault and strangulation. Now, this particular case did draw a lot of eyes. Some of the reports said that at one point there were even like 100 different detectives working on this case and trying to solve what exactly had happened to Barbara Forrest. And oddly enough, they came upon one suspect, and his name was Thornton as well, similar to Mary. The suspect in question was a man named Michael Ian Thornton, and he lived on Chester Road where Barbara's body was found. He was also a co-worker of Barbara's. They worked at the same children's home, and police ended up finding blood-stained pants in his possession, and with that, he was arrested for Barbara's murder. Now, I know what you're thinking. These cases are super weird. Why are there so many connections? Why are both suspects named Thornton? So many weird coincidences with this. And how are these cases still unsolved? Just to add more similarities to this case, both men named Thornton were acquitted in both murder trials for Mary and Barbara. In August of 1817, Abraham Thornton's trial began, and the public was very against him. Pretty much everyone believed that he had in fact killed Mary. But when it really came down to the evidence, there ended up being 3 people that backed up Abraham's alibi that night, and the timing didn't make sense for he could have actually killed her. That, paired with the lack of evidence of him actually committing the murder, the jury would come back with a not guilty verdict. Now, Mary's brother understandably did not like this verdict. He wanted justice for whoever had murdered his sister, so he wanted to appeal the verdict. And for some reason, like, the legal officials for this case decided that they wanted to do like a trial by battle in the appeal, which would be like Abraham Thornton and Mary's brother like going against each other to the death. What? Very weird. Mary's brother ended up not going for it, and so Abraham was a free man. And although Abraham Thornton was found innocent, the town still thought he was guilty, to the point of he could not find a job, and eventually he moved from England to the United States. Now, going back to 1974, while Michael Ian Thornton's alibi did not check out, there was not enough evidence to place him at the scene, to connect him to Barbara's murder, and so again, for his trial, he was found not guilty in the murder case. Adding to another similarity to this case, Barbara's sister refused to believe this was the case, and actually she really wanted them to reopen the case in 2012 because DNA evidence could be used from some of the blood that was found in his possession, and she was really trying to fight to get her sister's case reopened. So both siblings, Mary's brother and Barbara's sister, really fought for justice on their siblings' murder. Michael Ian Thornton and Abraham Thornton both connected to these cases and both found innocent of murder. So why would this happen? 2 cases, so very similar, 157 years apart. Is it a coincidence? Is it some sort of copycat trying to recreate Mary's murder, but into the 70s? But how would they frame 2 men with the same name? And would they really be lucky enough to find 2 women in the same town, the same age, with the same birthday, and successfully pull off a copycat murder? Or is it just one of those weird coincidences where the cases are in fact very similar but not connected at all? These 2 cases are very mysterious. And there are definitely lots of unanswered questions, as there usually are with cold cases. I did read a few reports that said that both Mary and Barbara had weird feelings leading up to their death, like they felt like something bad was going to happen. Mary told her friend Hannah's mother that she had a bad feelings about the weeks to come, while Barbara told a coworker, "This is going to be my unlucky month, I just know it. Don't ask me why." And soon after that, both women were killed. Wouldn't it be super tragic if you believe in things like reincarnation? Like that Mary was reincarnated into Barbara and then was murdered in a similar fashion? A more outlandish theory, I know, but some people do say that the 2 women did look alike. What do you think the connections are, or the reality is, of these 2 really similar cases? it would be great if modern DNA science could at least solve maybe Barbara's case. With hers being in 1974, it's definitely more possible to being solved than Mary's, unfortunately, in 1817. As always, I would love to hear what you think about this case, theories, and so on. Welcome back to this series, and I hope you enjoyed.